Greetings and welcome. Thank you for stopping by here on YouTube at The Real Bloom From Within Love. I go by Bloomy. Anything that you all need to know about me should be listed somewhere in the description box. And if you want to know more, I invite you to check out many of the playlists that I've created for you all regarding all of the things that we do here at Bloom From Within Love. I want to send my love and light out to all of you who are here divinely guided in high vibe positive energy, who sends me well wishes and positive vibes, the positive comments, likes, shares, subscribes, all of that good old stuff. Those of you who've donated, those of you who have gotten personal readings, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you and may you be well. To the newbies, YouTube is actually growing in spite of the lack of activity that I've been giving it. It's growing daily. So welcome all newbies. I hope those of you that are divinely guided, I hope that you are finding things to suit what you need on your journey in a holistic way. That's the point of Bloom From Within Love. Now, this video is dedicated to my maternal grandmother. I promised that I was going to be her voice, and as an aspect of sharing my own journey and story, but tying it into her story. I believe that my grandmother was an indigo or a starseed, an earth angel, but because of the culture and the time in which she carnated into, and all of the dynamics around it, she just couldn't break free from the matrix. She couldn't go through the ascension process. And so as a result, she ended up developing a lot of mental illness and issues. And anytime you suppress a lot of energy and you go against your own soul, it creates a disruption. And my grandmother was the oldest of, I want to say, maybe 10, 11 children, and she had a different father, and she always felt like there was a difference of how she was treated. As a child, her mom had her very young, which was classic at the in the olden days, but she felt there was always a difference made between her and all the others, and there was favoritism, there was abuse, there was negligence. Her mother did things that in some cases were denied, like she watched my grandmother struggle. She wouldn't give them certain things, and her and my mom, and just different little passive aggressive, toxic mistreatment that everybody keeps silent about, that everybody lies about, that everybody denies, and everybody smiles and make nice and come to the barbecue and, all those things. And it only created further disruption because the reality was there was a difference. And the reality was there was mistreatment and it wasn't being dealt with. And the culture and the times didn't believe in any of that. The only spirituality was about a ritual of church and a prayer. Okay. But no healing, no evolving, no awakening, not dealing with the dysfunction and the abuse within one's own family, and would be shunned for speaking of it or even dealing with it outside of what they felt like was appropriate, which is just say a prayer and ask Jesus to fix it. And it created a lot of pain, a lot of drama, a lot of disconnect. She ended up being diagnosed as manic depression. But I think that's just a result of denying her soul, opting out of her path. And I feel like that's a result of when an earth angel or a starseed that signed up with an ascended journey, when they refuse their healing, it goes really wrong for them. Really, really wrong. They end up in deep levels of depression and addictions. And like in my grandmother's case, she was a very angry person. A lot of people wouldn't have known. And very physically abusive. Okay, she was an alcoholic. And I watched her project that pain and energy off onto my older sister and off onto me. And in some cases, then off onto my mother. But my mother has her own toxicity. And I believe that's because her mom didn't deal with her own soul. So, of course, then she had my mother, and my mom, she was wilding out, and of course she tried to claim like it was about my grandmother entirely, but it really wasn't. Because she did things and said things as a mother that if you were healthy and normal and loving and connected, you wouldn't have done either. Okay? To me and my sister when we were growing up. But everybody smiles and make nice and go to the barbecue and go to the church functions and the drill teams and the, all of those things. So there was a lot of people that wasn't even fully aware of this stuff. They just seen the side of the lady who cooks the good food, and presses people's hair. And, so that's the insidious nature of passive aggressive or covert narcissism. Because they do have a public persona, but other things be going on. Okay? And, in her passing, I believe now, since on my journey and with my awakening and ascension and my healing process, I do believe as a reader, as an energy channeler, I do believe that, she got her life's review and it was dealt with. And the baton was passed because she was supposed to do what I'm doing. She just couldn't. For her, it was too much. And because she was a starseed earth angel, she ended up being high ranking in her passing and opted in to be one of my guides. Okay? And so she knows what I've had to take on. She knows what she did to me in her 3D form. She knows where she contributed to that. And she knows what I've had to take on with my ascension process, but she knows also how the cycle just continued, and it continued because everybody is fake and pretending and lying and denying and refusing to acknowledge the things that have happened and wondering why, things go a certain way within a family, refusing to acknowledge the pain, refusing to acknowledge the abuse, just downright denying the toxicity that has actually happened, making excuses, justifying, having selective memory, that sociopathic energy. She's aware that that is the toxicity and family ancestral wounds that have continued, and that she came to deal with and couldn't. I was willing, my soul's ascension level, it was always set up that way. I was willing to take it on. In my 3D form, I didn't resist it. I resisted early in life. I looked and searched through all sorts of religion, but I didn't back out. I didn't renege. I ended up embracing it. So she knows the real story behind my family. She knows the secrets, the lies, the incest, the molestation, the physical abuse, the jealousy, the envy, the gaslighting, the scapegoating, the faking, the fake spirituality, the mistreatment, the negligence, the abandonment, the cruelty. She knows because it was done to her. Her mother did the same thing. When my grandmother was young and had my mom, there was levels of mistreatment there. It was passive aggressive. People acting like they couldn't help or support, or only doing so much to make them feel low and excluded, but acting like that's not what was happening. My mother ended up becoming the same thing. So did my sisters. And in some cases, unfortunately, my nieces are probably becoming that same thing. People who are abusive, jealous, envious, competitive, liars, thieves, to their very own, right? But play godly, pretend like that's not what they're doing, deny that they lied, deny that they had any knowledge of what was going on, deny that they did any spell work or that they knew about it, deny that they fucked your man, or deny that they were, stalking you, deny that they stole your money. I already told you the story about my mom and the stuff that she's been doing for years. And the stuff that even happened in latter years, because she tries to talk about how she was changed, but she wasn't. She did some crazy stuff to my brother way late in life while she was claiming to be so changed. And this meddling in people's lives and marriages sneakily and playing siblings behind, against each other, all of that kind of stuff is toxic, but nobody talks about it. They play like it ain't happening, or they try to normalize it. This has been going on. It went on with my grandmother. It went on in her growing up. This is what created the sibling rivalries. It's what created the competition. It's what created the indifference and all this stuff. Enabling narcissistic behavior, enabling the toxic siblings to do what they do, and switching up and then saying something else. All of that type of stuff is mental illness, is abuse. Especially when you try to then present to the public and everyone else as if it didn't happen. This is what further perpetuates these ancestral wounds. It's not about trying to come together for a funeral or for a family reunion that is going to make that better. That is what my grandmother want to say. It's not about a big mama dinner and a Christmas party and coming together on Easter and coming together in tragedies only to trauma bond and glaze over everything and say, let bygones be bygones, but nobody is really changing, healing, or dealing with what happened and continues to happen in the first place. Still triangulating. Still saying one thing to one and another thing to another and then lying about it. But all at the same time, trying to portray this image of godly, holy, healed, different, saved, while plotting against your own offspring, while teaming up with one of your narcissistic children to come against one of your other offspring, and that's normal. This is what my grandmother wants to address. This is why she is highly pissed and whooping asses. Because these are the ones that claim, they'll cry on a drop of a dime, crocodile tears, while they hold their Bible and they cross and all of that. And they're full of envy and jealousy and hate. And they sold their own children out for money, for attention, to get even because they're miserable with their miserable lives and don't want their own offsprings to be happy. Jealous and competitive with their very own. My grandmother is aware that was a part of her story. It's a part of mine, the betrayal energy within the family. I'm aware my mom sold me out in many, many ways. She's not aware that I am aware of a lot of things she did, even way back in the 90s. And that's what continues. My father is not too much different. My father is another narc that is a shapeshifter. He says whatever he needs to say, depending on who he's talking to. And the golden child energy, whoever, they're benefiting from the most in the moment is who they put on the pedestal. Not knowing. Spells, I believe my sister had put on all these people. I'm just going to be on a 100. Because, see, they all refuse their healing. And when that's the case, then, yeah, you're going to certainly bow and be more susceptible to that kind of shit. And I believe that as my oldest sister migrated, her and her family, to Sodom and Gomorrah, that was really the long and slow demise of her soul. That was already not well. And she got in contact, I believe, with a lot of distorted spiritualists. I believe in Sodom and Gomorrah, that stuff is prevalent. You can probably find one of them on every corner or every ad. Somebody could have introduced it. She could have started tapping into it because she didn't want to heal. She didn't want to deal with that. She just wanted the 3D appearance of success at all cost. Okay, without people really knowing what was the real behind it all. Why was there ever no real stability after 10, 15 years of what this seemingly success was? So, I feel like the spell work and all that stuff really started amplifying with that. And, unfortunately, with my twin, equally dark. He was reared in Sodom. So that was a whole nother level of toxicity there. That was a classic case of narcissist met the narc. Okay? Equally toxic. And the refusal to heal. And what happens when people refuse and opt into the dark side of things. And then scapegoat and target the one that is on the path of light and ascension. That is what happened with me. My grandmother is aware of it. She's aware that because I took the baton and I held it and I ran with it, that it put a target on my head more and more. Because I was no longer willing to pretend. I was no longer willing to turn a blind eye. I was no longer willing to play this role. I was no longer willing to pretend like the abuse wasn't happening. I was no longer willing to pretend like I didn't know that my very own was talking about me behind my back, planning and strategizing behind my back, jealous of me, secretly competing. I no longer was willing to kiss their ass. I no longer was willing to accept their scraps. I was no longer willing So I was no longer willing to bite my tongue, because I decided I will speak truth, whether people believed me or not. But I will speak the truth, and that because it was truth, that I will one day somehow be vindicated, period. And the right folks will know what they need to know. And it's on behalf of the bloodline, and this is why I'm supported by her, my grandmother, amongst all my other guides, source included. Because by me taking the position and taking the baton, I had to take the heat, the abuse, the smear campaigns, the lies. When my soul was awakening and going through the dark nights, my family exploited it. Instead of being loving and truly supported, they exploited it. It was a plan. It was a strategy because of their own jealousy, their own envy, their own greed, their own refusal to deal with themselves. So then they looked at me. My mom tried to sabotage my happiness. My sister tried to assume my identity and become me, and to project her toxicity onto me. They went so far as to wish death on me and my son. They went so far to try to strategize and set me up. They stole. They lied. But yet want to present like they're this loving people that just tried to help. But it's been nothing but them trying to sabotage me the whole time. When I finally cut all of them off, this is when I began to grow by leaps and bounds. In spite of all their black magic and chaos magic and stalking me, yes, they stalked me, my own family, yes. They used their children, they used their grandchildren, they used their associates, they used their friends to stalk me and my son. They bullied me behind fake profiles. Yes. They hacked my accounts, devices. I reported all this to the FBI. And they had a collaboration. My ex was involved at some point. And then I think something happened with him. I don't know. He got spooked and, wanted out. And then that created a whole level of drama for him. But this is the type of poison that when we hear readings or healers and people talk about stuff like breaking ancestral this, wounds and that, it's the deep stuff. It's not this surface stuff that most people try to, frolic around acting like they breaking something when they are a part of the curse. This over attachment to the 3D, that is the curse itself. That is a lack mentality, a toxic, addictive attachment to money, to clout, to power, to fame, to riches, to stuff. That is an attachment. That is an addiction. That is the curse. Especially if you're willing to steal from your own for it. You're not breaking anything. You are the curse. If you're willing to lie and bear false witness, hide and deny, you are a part of the curse. You can go to church all you want and say Jesus and Bible and please and cry, but you're a part of the curse. That's what my grandmother was supposed to help break. That's what I was here to break. But in order to break something, what has to happen? It has to be illuminated. That's like anything else in life. Anything that you're trying to remedy, it has to be diagnosed Before you can get to a core of an issue, someone's going to have to do a diagnostic. The light is going to have to be shined on something. We can equate this to anything in life. We can equate it to mechanics. We could equate it to carpentry. We can equate it to anything. The only way something gets properly remedied is a diagnostic and light being shone upon where the issues are, and it being identified and it being addressed to a degree. But as long as there is a covering up of things, a hiding and a lying and denying, there's no healing. So for some of these people, they think that by them hiding, lying, and denying, that they stop the healing. They stop the healing for themselves because of their choice to lie, hide, and deny. But whoever in a dynamic or a bloodline decides to finally speak truly, no matter what the persecution is, the Joan of Arc energy, they get theirs, honey. They get their healing because they decided to be courageous and dare to go down the rabbit hole and dare to reveal and expose the dark, ugly truths that have created these toxic, abusive, dysfunctional dynamics in a family, whether or not people co-sign it or not, whether or not people agree, whether or not people own up, they got to live with that energy. I'm speaking on behalf of my grandmother and myself, on behalf of my son, and those after us that will opt to do the right thing, that is here to end dysfunction and family negligence, abuse, incest, molestation, abandonment, envy, jealousy, narcissism, scapegoating, gaslighting, triangulating. We stand to break that by speaking out and speaking truly about the abuse that was done to us. They were not as helpful as they tried to portray themselves to be. They're codependent on energy. They wanted me trapped. They wanted me reliant. They wanted to make themselves feel good by making me feel bad, or by making things difficult, by acting like they wanted to help but not. I have shared many stories of the truth about what they really did versus what they have gone around telling people they did, and the people they get to co-sign it. That is equally toxic and dysfunctional and a part of their flying monkey groups. Just because someone gives somebody money or gets something, this is where the trap is, and this is why we're exposing that. Narcissists are notorious for being people that to the public appearance, they look like major givers in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And I don't really understand why people are so dumbfounded or gullible as to believe that because somebody did some kind of an act of a gift that meant that they were really loving and caring, because it doesn't mean that. It was a trap. It was so that they can make themselves look good and then also turn around and sabotage you. That's the insidious nature of dysfunctional family. This happened to my grandmother, and all of this was kept silent, and she stuffed it and she stuffed it and ended up projecting it because she couldn't awaken. She couldn't deal with the healing and ascension. She opted just to go with the status quo. It became worse. It became worse. Then there was a lot of anger and abuse. It was passed on. My sister became her. I have stories of even as a young adult, and I have these memories that's flashing to me where my sister was abusive to, one of my mother's ex's ex-husband's son and, threw him in a bathroom or something because he wasn't listening. I mean, I have memories, and threw the rice in his plate of rice because he wouldn't eat. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. Bet you really won't hear much about these types of stories. She jumped on me when I was a teenager. She tried to kill me when I was a baby. Had me by my neck. And guess what? Just like a typical toxic mother and father, my parents tell the story like it's something cute and something to laugh at. This is what lets you know how fucked up in the head they are. Where it should have been an alert, like, oh my God, my 5-year-old is like, what the hell? Why would she pick her up by her neck and try to bring the baby to me? Instead of calling me to come in here, she's trying to kill her. A karmic. My older sister is certainly a karmic, but really my family. My mother for sure. My mother, my older sister, and my father for sure. I believe all my sisters, if I'm being 100, but I can certainly attest for 100, absolutely. And instead of, healthy mother and father dealing with it, because they were not healthy. But see, here's the thing. Some may say, is this about shaming? Not really. It's about shining a light, though, because especially it's insulting when these same individuals try to go about making you look bad and trying to make themselves look like they were or are healthy parents, because they still aren't. They still aren't. There's been no change. They can't do the same shit because they old as hell. But they're not changed. They're still the same. Any parent that would do some of the things that my mother and my father have done as an adult, I'm not talking about when I was a kid, they not changed. And that's the type of toxicity that was to be dealt with. Right? That entitlement, that sense of wanting loyalty and respect while being disloyal and disrespectful because they had sex and had a kid. Or because they're older, that hierarchy energy. If you fucked up, you're fucked up. You ain't getting no free shit or whatever because your age and shit. Or because you had sex and created. If you're toxic, you are toxic. If you're disrespectful, you're disrespectful. If you're disloyal, you're disloyal. But expecting, that's the narcissism, feeling entitled to undying and unyielding loyalty and respect while they betray you and stab you in your back and lie to your face and patronize you. And plot to steal and wait for your death and do spell work and rituals on you. That's a sickness, you guys. That is a dis-ease. Understand. That is the curse. That is mental illness. I don't care if they have a Mercedes in a briefcase. That is a mental illness. I don't care what group of folks they have managed to put a spell on to cheerlead for them. That is mental illness. If you can conduct like that. And that's the stuff that I am speaking out and on behalf of Bloom from Within Love and those that are divinely guided to empower you all the same. One of the reasons why narcs are able to do so much for so very long is because of the programming and the fear that is conditioned into people if they dare to open their mouth. all of that insidious nature of, that's insidious, sadistic manipulation and planning that they do to make someone look bad. The reactive abuse that happens and all of these group controls. And so banking on people being so exhausted or so afraid of not set to say anything because nobody's going to believe them or, whatever the case. And so they bank on people just going away and falling off the earth, dying somewhere and hiding so that they can still lie and live to appear to be something that they are not. I am standing to break that. These people are unapologetic. That's what my grandmother went through. It's what I went through. They are unapologetic, downright pathological in lying. And they still continue on behind the scenes with toxic, negative, devilish collaborations. And wonder why their life is hell on wheels and going to continue to be hell on wheels. Especially if they keep fucking with me. My son, bloom from within love, especially. If they keep sending distorted energy, everything that matters to them will start to die. Because now is the time that this stops, and it will stop one way or the other. It is time for people to be seen and known as their true frequency versus how they're portraying themselves. I'm talking about heart. I'm not talking about costume and label and fake deeds of goodness. It is time for the light to be shone on this type of stuff that is hurting families. That is why mental illness prevails in these types of family dynamics to begin with. Because all of this pain, all of this betrayal, all of this abuse, but smiling and lying like it didn't even happen. So people who stay in that energy, guess what? They are going to keep perpetuating that in their lives and those connected to them. That's right. It's going to be nothing but fake, fuck shit, bullshit, toxic shit. Same old thing. And that's going to be their legacy, and that's what they're going to be remembered. That's how they're going to be remembered. I'm making certain of it. I am setting it up to where when I go and when my son go, first and foremost, none of them will be contacted. But everything will be handled legally how I've appointed it to be. And the mentions of them will be dishonorable. Correct. If they live this lifetime pretending like things did not happen, denying these things, and then continuing to still do these things, they will be dishonorably mentioned. And people will know and see it as truth. They will not get to piggyback off of me or my son or bloom from within love. They will be exposed because they didn't honor the process for healing. They dishonored the gifts that was meant to help them awaken and ascend. And because of that, the stench of it will sit with them. And it will be a struggle. And everything they did to me and my son, they will live and see play out in their lives or their children or their grandchildren or anything that's important to them. And it's because of the refusal to do what was right and the insistence on doing what was wrong. Collective, if this is resonating, I hope this empowers you to embrace your journey and live and speak your truth, even as it's uncomfortable. Not everything could be dealt with privately. If you came from narcissists, and chances are you spent years of your life trying to understand those people, trying to talk to them, trying to understand them. They didn't want that. They didn't want healing. Every time you opened your mouth, they gaslit, they triangulated, they deflected, they projected. They have ample opportunity for things to be done silently or in private and all of those things, but they have no intention for that. So if that is the case with you, don't be afraid. Be divinely guided, of course, but don't be afraid to speak out your truth. If they had really wanted healing, they would have done that with you. And the only reason why they get upset later is because they get exposed. They didn't mind smearing your name. They didn't mind lying on you to everybody around you. They didn't mind trying to make you look bad in a cowardly way, in a sneaky way, behind your back. So don't you mind exposing their asses publicly. This is a part of healing. This is a part of your alchemy and your release. And it's a part of breaking those chains, the curse of silence and tolerance to narcissistic abuse, domestic violence, negligent, scapegoating, crazy making in a family. The only way out is through. The only way to healing and light is truth. Not by pretending, lying, and denying. Let them do that. But you speak. And I promise you, you'll be supported by your guides and source. And those who need to know, they too will see the truth. And those who stay blind, well, then it's good for you to know who they are so that you can keep a healthy boundary and stay the hell away from them. Wish them well. Hell, I don't even know about that anymore. I'm beyond honest status. Because I know the power of my words when you activate your alpha and your omega. So you may want to say, what they have wished for me, may they receive. And that is not you sending out any negative energy. It's actually you giving them their toxic, fucked up energy back. Namaste.